don't have a huge amount for the rest of the session, but a couple announcements about our upcoming general meeting. The next one is on Sunday, June 11th at Oakland Middle Harbor from roughly 11 to sometime in the afternoon, probably 4. It will be preceded by a gear swap that will start at 10 a.m., but we'll probably, knowing how things go, kind of trail on throughout the day as people decide they need some new goodies or bring in new goodies that they're trying to offload. And so this is just a low-key event. There's no featured speaker. It's I heard from people I'd love to have just a chance to get together and chat. So that's the basis of this meeting. And because we're BASK and we like to eat, it's a potluck party. The special event is that our BASK co-founder will be celebrating her 80th birthday. If you, well, it's getting a little bit late, but if you have a favorite picture of Penny that you'd like to share, please send that to me right away. Or you can bring one if you just have an old photo that's an old Kodachrome. Feel free to bring it. And if you want to share your favorite stories, that's fine too. But we try not to embarrass Penny too much. The other thing was suggested was for those of you that have fancy Greenland paddles, there's a lot of people that have put a lot of time into making, really making their own Greenland paddles and taken classes on it. Might be nice to bring those to the picnic. You can show them off to other paddlers. And we've got some new paddlers in the club, quite a few, that are still paddling the European style bladed paddle. So it's your chance to educate some of the newer members about all the benefits of Greenland paddles and show off your favorite paddle yourself. There's 2 paddles that day. There's a new member paddle that will be launching after the meeting from the Tidewater Boat Center, which will be down the street. And all of those details are in the calendar and on Currents. And then Coder recently initiated a paddle to paddle from Tidewater to the meeting, but I'm still feeling guilty about having to miscall the tides for that meeting. They were good, but then when the the park wasn't available on the day with the good tides, we had to take the day with the bad tides. So just beware if it's a little bit muddy as if you paddle to the meeting. Okay, and then our July meeting, looking further ahead, will be a virtual meeting by Zoom. And our presenter is Michael Stalker of Ocean Conservation Research. I want to thank the BASK members who suggested him as a speaker. He's made a lot of nice movies. And so he'll be presenting by Zoom on Wednesday. It's possible that I'll be out of town for that meeting, in which case Elizabeth has already agreed to host that one. So, and that one will be recorded as well. So. Okay. We still need a few volunteers. So I'm just going to keep putting the call out for treasurer pretty regularly until I see some hands raised. That's a 3-year term. And so Tim will be stepping down after his 3rd year. So we're still going to be looking for somebody to start in 2024. Look for the notes in the newsletter. Talk to Tim. This does not require an advanced accounting degree. You don't have to be a CPA or a tax person. Just need some knowledge of spreadsheets and organization. And we're also looking for party planners, people who like to help out to help David Caruso-Redin with the holiday party, for which planning is already getting underway. Any other events and some of our in-person meetings, since the venues change around necessarily. We haven't yet identified a permanent long-term venue, although we're looking. So it'd be helpful to have people that just kind of help with setup and clean up afterward. For the upcoming Oakland Middle Harbor picnic, we're looking for volunteers to help there, and there'll be a sign-up sheet for that. So look for that in the newsletter and the calendar. If you want to help out with that, shouldn't be a huge amount of work. So there was also an announcement. We're looking for lifeguard wannabes. This will be in the newsletter that will go out tonight. So in talking with folks and about the plunge, and with Keith Miller of CCK, apparently the latest situation is that if we can identify 4 to 6 BASK members that are willing to be trained and certified by the city of Richmond, that could allow us to resume BASK full practice at the plunge. So this is the lifeguard position is apparently paid by the city of Richmond, and it's not quite defined, but there's a possibility of having a trade for lifeguard sessions for free pool practice or the like. So, but you know, I realize that's a kind of a big ask to have people be willing to take that on, but that's currently the stumbling block, is the shortage of lifeguards. I'll just stop a second and see if there's any questions on that. Nope, guess not.
Hi, Chris. This is
yeah.
So in talking with Keith, this has been a long-going negotiation on Keith's behalf, and we are grateful to him for his work on this. And this is a big step forward. If people can, if anybody wants to try to become a lifeguard, it's not a shoe-in, but they're willing to offer the training, and they just need about 4 people to get through the training and get the certification and be willing to show up. And then the paddling, the evening paddles can happen there as well as in Rohnert Park. So this is a big opportunity for BASK as well.
Is this a new information? Because my understanding was you have to be an employee of Richmond to be a lifeguard, and you have to work a certain amount of hours.
Yes, this is absolutely new information that Keith just got a few days ago, and he sees it as a big breakthrough. So that, thank you for asking that question, because that was the stumbling block.
Yeah, it is a breakthrough because they've been saying no.
Yes.
Cool.
I mean,
Go ahead, Larry.
East Bay Parks has a cadre of lifeguards that we may be able to tap into, are already trained. I'll check with them and see if they're available to help, because then you would avoid the whole training thing. So, and they're local kids or adults. Sorry. So I'll check with them.
Yeah, because the position is paid, right? So you would think it doesn't matter. They wouldn't have to be BASKers. They just have to be there. Correct? They're inactive.
That's right. And to answer a question that was raised by Tom and Ellen, if they're lifeguarding, they can't do practice that evening, but there's a trade for if you lifeguard tonight, then tomorrow or the next time you can do role practice or whatever for free. I mean, you get paid, and in addition, you get free access to the pool practice. At least that's what Keith is negotiating with them.
So I love that, the idea of the East Bay Regional Parks being able to support us in that way. How long do we know how long the training program is to become a lifeguard if the East Bay Regional Parks thing doesn't work?
We can check with Keith on this. My understanding is it's a couple of months and then there's a final exam. And previously, it's been a less than 50% pass rate after the training. So that's why I'm nudging on Keith's behalf and on BASK's behalf to try and get a number of people to give this a try. If you're at all interested, it'd be a really good thing if you want to do it.
What's the cost for the training?
I think that's to be negotiated, and Keith had the impression, I'm speaking on Keith's behalf here, but he had the impression that Richmond is really eager to have this happen. So I think that it would be a small to no cost, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it's no cost. But yeah, it'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah. This is just very new in the last week that Keith got this information.
Yeah, because I had been talking to Keith about it and I hadn't heard about this. So yeah, we can definitely would want to find out more, and we can, or you can post it on Currents with those details, or have Keith post it on Currents with the details.
So I'm ignorant about the lifeguard situation, but lifeguard certification is, it's universal, right? Once you get certified to be a lifeguard, it should be accepted by everybody, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it should be.
Exactly. So the distinction is that prior to this, the person that Keith was working with insisted that they had to be Richmond lifeguards, and they just didn't have enough lifeguards. In a recent communication he got from this person, they seemed to renege on that restriction and just said, look, we really need lifeguards. If somebody can, if you can provide your own lifeguards. But she did put a minimum of 4 to 6. So that's our target number.
Yeah.
And then stacking it out, because the pass rate on this is less than 50%, we really need about 10 people to give it a try. But it's certainly would be a very useful thing within BASK. And then the other thing is that they have indicated they could, if we could gather enough people together, then they could offer training as soon as June. So, and that's tomorrow. So I think there's flexibility and interest there. You can talk further with Keith to get more details. I'm just, relaying what I saw in the email that he showed me.
Yeah. Well, it's great if it, I can understand them wanting to employ people, and probably particularly youth within the city of Richmond, to be lifeguards if they can, but if they don't have them, they don't have them. So it's good that they're expanding their horizons a bit. So,
Well, just to fill it out a little bit, the last that I talked to Keith about it, I think was a month and a half ago. There are lifeguards. They have lifeguards. They have lifeguards on staff. They just insist on having 3 working on Thursday nights, and they haven't been able to get 3 to work on Thursday nights. So that's been the rub. And we had tried a proposal to have at least a BASK member be a lifeguard as one of the 3, so that we could get the quorum they wanted to have. So this is very exciting to hear that they're open to it now. Very happy to hear this.
yeah, great progress.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you to all of you who have been looking into that. Janie and Elizabeth, I know folks are anxious to get that going. So, all right, so stay tuned. There'll probably be posts of some kind on Current with updates and perhaps more details.
Yeah, I guess the final detail is that Keith has asked anybody who's interested to contact him, and the email is cckjefe@gmail.com. That's in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so contact Keith directly if you're interested.
DCK Jefe, we know who that is. Okay, and the last plea for volunteers, hey, don't hesitate to post a paddle if you want to post a paddle. We had tons of them in May. We got a few in June, and the summer's coming up. I know people are traveling, but if you're going to have a paddle, just go ahead and post it. Okay, some future events that are coming up. Jan wanted me to make sure we remind everybody, it's in the newsletter, Sonoma State Pool is going to be closed for repairs June 1 and June 8. And if the repairs require more time, he will make sure to let us know. We all know sometimes construction and contractors take longer than we expect. So we're hoping it'll be back by the 15th, but he'll let us know. Right away this week, there's a graduation paddle for students of the How to Plan a Bay Paddle class. We continue to get rave reviews about how useful that class is. So that's only for the graduation paddle for those students, but there may be future sessions of that class. So if you haven't taken it, definitely consider that. On the very next day, there's rescue clinic and peer practice at Berkeley by the same safety and education folks. So it sounds like Margot and Jen Fury are going to have a busy weekend as usual, training students. On June 7th, our fantastic new member at large, Dwight, has I think his third or fourth Zoom discussion on how to initiate a paddle. For those of you who have not yet initiated a paddle and you're thinking about dipping your toes in those waters, that discussion is helpful because you get a chance to ask any questions you like, express any reservations you may have or concerns or worries. And there's typically people on that call, on the Zoom call, who have initiated several paddles and can, talk you through and answer any questions. So, okay, June 11th, I already mentioned, is our general meeting at the Oakland Middle Harbor. Basically just a little party and get together. June 17th, new member paddle from Horseshoe Cove and circumnavigating Angel Island. So if you're a new member and you're ready to paddle the bay, hopefully it's not too windy and choppy on that day. But that should be a great, that's always a great experience, a great paddle to participate in. And then finally, June 25th is one of the last rescue clinic and peer practice at Horseshoe Bay. This one is very popular because conditions can be a little bit bigger, so it provides some really good practice. That class is full, but there could be sign up, so stay tuned or contact the safety people, Margot and Jen Fury. Refer to the addresses on the newsletter if you want to find out about those. Okay, the skills clinic. I don't know if the slide changed, but there's no proper slide for the skills clinic. And unfortunately, Owen had to step out a little bit early because he thought the meeting times were reversed. So
I'm back.
You're back?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I'll let you provide the announcement.
Okay. So we have sent out congratulatory messages to the student applicants that we have selected. And so they're working on their bios, and we're looking forward to presenting the slate of students at the next in-person general meeting, which is on June 11th in Oakland. So I know you'd be looking forward to finding out who they are, and it will be wonderful to have them presented to the club. Other than that, the response to looking for volunteer applicants, that has been fantastic. And so now we're in the process of making assignments of volunteers to specific days and activities. So we'll try and finalize that maybe at the weekend, and maybe later on next week, publish that, and allow people to button down the time that they need to commit to for that, and let others off the hook so they can have a fun time over the summer. Other than that, the planning for the various days and activities is progressing very well. One of the differences this year compared with last year, it relates to the Surf Zone Day. So this year we have sent 6 folks to a class on instructing in the surf zone. And it was done by Chris Manchester from HMB Kayaks. So those folks are Don Barch, Paul Randall, Damon Paxton, Jennifer Chandler, Stacy Jones, and Dwight Brown. And so these are going to be the leads for the Surf Zone Day. So when it comes to the volunteer weekend that we have, where we align all of the instructors around the actual instruction, so it's preparation. So we have our activities buttoned down from an instruction point of view. Typically, we have on the second day, we've split up the second day of that weekend. So we had a surf zone group that would go off and practice their activity. We will not have that this year because those instructors have already been trained on how we will approach that day. So other than that, work is in progress, as I say, on buttoning down the details for the entire skills clinic. So if there's any questions, I can take them now. Other than that, it's my report.
Thank you, Owen. Actually, I have a question on the surf zone instruction. Is there a plan for those 6 to train any additional volunteers that'll probably be needed on Surf Zone Day?
No, they will not be. These are the trainers. There will be another set of volunteers helping them. So if people come out of their kayaks, for example, they will help to collect their kayaks, get the water out of them, and put them back in the water. So the whole approach to the Surf Zone Day is different this year. So last year and in prior years, the instructors have been in the water, not in boats, in the water, coaching the people. So we never went out very far. So this year, it's going to be slightly different. The approach is that the instructors will actually be in boats, and the students will also be in boats. So it'll be a one-on-one type situation.
Oh, interesting. And I thought Chris Manchester was going to be teaching that, leading the teaching of the students themselves.
He will. Well, he gave the course to those 6 people that I mentioned. So they had their weekend. So they're all primed on how they will do the instruction on the Surf Zone Day. The role of Chris Manchester during our Surf Zone Day will be to provide any guidance and instruction to those instructors.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Anybody else have questions? I'm not monitoring the chat right now, so somebody else will have to.
Good to go.
Okay. Well, I know you had a lot of people volunteer to be volunteer instructors. I think it was a huge number. So thank you to all those folks who volunteered for that. It's always a time-consuming role, but one that I know everybody finds rewarding and fun to see the students so excited, the new students so excited about everything they're learning. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I just wanted to add in a few thank yous to folks. We do have new speaker seekers. So a big thank you to Paul Randall and Marianne King who volunteered for that. They've been doing a fantastic job with some really cool ideas. And the emails are flying trying to make those happen. So a big thank you to those guys for stepping up. we'll probably be thanking our communications committee from now till doomsday, but I just can't say enough that those guys worked so hard on that Currents forum, and it has been so fantastic that you know, I don't think we can thank the communications committee enough. So thank you to all of you guys. And like I said, you saw Margot and Jen Furia spending their entire weekend, this coming weekend, teaching students how to be more safe on the water. They've put together so many classes now for years. And I think the other thing is that we keep hearing comments from new students about how much more confident they feel on the water after taking their classes. So that's really, I think, one of the huge strengths of BASK that many other kayak clubs across the nation don't have the same kind of strength that we do. So thank you to Margot and Jen for tireless activity. And also Jan and Kathleen for organizing the pool practice. That takes a bit of time as well. The North Bay has gone through some changes at Sonoma State with construction and time changes and closures and price changes, and they're always very good about communicating that to everybody and keeping it organized. So these are just some things that came up recently, and I just wanted to call people out for being so helpful. And I think that takes us to our final activity of the evening, which is Marianne Furda and her muscle of the month, if she's still available.
Right here.
Okay, take it away, Marianne.
Okay.
Let me stop my sharing here.
Okay. I think I'm someplace. I don't know where I am.
Can't see you.
I can't see me either. Oh, I see. Okay. I switched it around. Okay. Here we go. Maybe
There you
that's
are.
it. Here we go. Okay. So you can't see the top of my head and you can't see my legs because today it's all about the forearms. So, and I'm gonna call on I'm hoping that Larry Moss might still be here because I'm gonna call on Larry to hand it over to him at a certain point. Okay, it's been very windy this spring. And so when you are paddling, of course, we want to keep our wrists in a neutral position. But when the wind hits the paddle, it's real easy. Well, it gets more and more challenging when there's more and more wind to keep the wrist in a neutral position. What will tend to happen is the wrists move into extension. Eventually, this position is going to create a problem here on these muscles. Now, interestingly enough, these muscles here actually will extend the wrist and extend the fingers. Okay, if they're being pushed back, some of the muscles attach on the hand side of the elbow, some attach on the shoulder side of the elbow. This group of muscles is called, curiously, the lateral mobile wad. Okay, so there's where the pain tends to happen. Oh, and so if you do more than one sport, you may be aware it's the same. This problem that we can get paddling in wind is the same problem that tennis players get paddling with a backhand stroke. So there it's a lengthening contraction because the tennis racket is moving in this direction, the ball is moving in this direction, and the wrist comes into flexion. So it's a lengthening contraction. Whichever way it goes, but this is called, so it's sometimes called tennis elbow or lateral epicondylitis is the fancy anatomical term, because that's, okay, anatomical position is with the palms forward, so this becomes lateral on the outside. So how do we fix it? Well, there's lots of ways. one thing that you can do for yourself, if you can, well, okay, obviously we want to try to keep the wrists in a neutral position. So strengthening the muscles dynamically is a good way to help prevent it. Of course, I don't suppose there's anybody here that like does anything like this on any kind of regular basis. Because if you did, then that might make those muscles a little bit more subject to being overused. Okay, so strengthening, very important to avoid overuse. Okay, strengthening on a regular basis, and that can be done dynamically, just doing movements in both directions with the palms facing down. Okay, and you could imagine a little bit of a hand weight. Okay, and then doing the opposite direction. Okay, so those simple things. Okay, and through as full a range of motion. Now, if you don't have a weight in hand, you can move the hands all the way into extension, forearms and fingers, and then all the way into flexion and into flexion. So again, you can do it in the opposite direction, into extension, flex the fingers, flex the wrist. Okay, so moving through a full range of motion is really helpful. Part of the problem with this is that it's not a full range of motion. So there's damage to little bitty parts of the muscle. Okay, so prevention, most important. Prevention involves strengthening the muscles and also stretching the muscles. And some of you may have seen this. It's been a while since I've been through this, and so that's where it came up again. And then Larry and I bumped into each other on a trail the other day, so I'm going to let him show you when I'm finished with my presentation. One more way of helping to heal from this challenge that a number of us have experienced. So prevention by strengthening, prevention by stretching. Okay, so I'm like the stretch maven. So let's talk about once again what the forearm, okay, does, right? The fingers do finger extension, wrist extension, okay, finger flexion, wrist flexion. The forearms also do, right, supination, soups up with the palm up, and pronation, palms down. Okay, so if you want to fully stretch these muscles back here, you bring the palms down, and then you go even further. You bring the forearms so that the thumb faces down. And you might, if you're doing that and your hand is in the middle of it, the front of your body, you can probably already feel that when you bring your thumb down and shift it a little bit. Okay, you can feel that stretching up here. Okay, so then you're going to take your other hand. Okay, so this is the hand that's getting the stretch. The bottom hand is getting the stretch. I'm going to take the other hand and I'm going to bring the heel of the top hand onto the heel of the bottom hand. This is where it gets a little squirrely. Okay, now notice how I'm seeing a bunch of people on screen and everybody's got their shoulders up around their ears. Okay, so let's see if we can get the shoulders down, okay, and let the elbows bend, and then bring the arms together and see if you can clap your hands, because you really want to get the heel of your hand against the heel of your hand. Okay, now remember, it's the bottom hand that gets the stretch. So I'm going to then interlace the fingers of my top hand on top of the fingers of my bottom hand. And then I'm going to press the heel of my top hand into the heel of my bottom hand. And if you drop your shoulders, there you go. Okay, you can feel this getting a stretch. Okay, now we might have a redux on June 11 because this is a little bit difficult for me to see if people are getting it. Okay, all right, so that's the stretch. Okay, so just in case you're doing it, let's stretch the other side. Okay, so take this second side, the thumb faces down and the palm goes down. And remember, it's the bottom hand that gets the stretch. So now the top hand, the heel of the hand comes on to the heel of the bottom hand, and the top hand, which is gonna do the stretching, the fingers curl around the bottom hand. The bottom hand relaxes, and then you press the heel of the top hand into the heel of the bottom hand. If you're looking down at yourself, okay, you'll be able to see a little bit the back of the top hand. See how as I'm extending the wrist, I'm pressing the heel of the top hand into the heel of the bottom hand, and that's getting the stretch. Okay. Now, remember I said there's muscles, some of those muscle fibers end in the forearm. Other muscle fibers in the same wad of muscle attach on the top of the elbow. So you want to do the stretch in two positions. One is with what I demonstrated with the elbow straight. Okay, so bottom hand, top hand. Now, here the elbow is straight. Now, all you need to do to get to the rest of those muscle fibers is bend your elbow slow and steady. Let the shoulders drop and bend the elbow. Okay, because that will get to the other fibers, to the fibers, the shorter fibers that don't cross the elbow. Okay, so lateral mobile wad. Now, something real easy that you can do, right? You go out and it's sore, ice until it numbs. Maybe that's 3 minutes, maybe that's 5 minutes, okay? Where it is. And I can see Chris and she's doing something like that. And there's another thing that you can do, and we call this the queen wave. So you put your fingers to point up and your thumb and little finger away and shake those hands. Keep the fingers pointing up, okay? So you're getting the blood out of the fingertips, and you can bring it up high and get the blood out of the elbows, okay? Now, one more way you can do that is just take the one hand and grasp it onto that lateral mobile wad, and then shake the arm. And you're like worrying the muscle, the hand is flapping, and these muscles with a big grip are getting a self-massage as the hand is waggling, okay? So do that same thing on the other side, waggle, waggle. And this waggling thing is something I think similar to what Larry is going to be demonstrating with the use of modern technology. Yes, Larry?
Sure. So
Sure.
I consulted Dr. Google and didn't get anything as good as Marianne just presented. But I did talk to a number of people who've also had, I've got some tendonitis as a result of practicing for the gonzo during windy days, right, Marianne? And there were a number of people I talked to who all came up with something in addition to Marianne's exercise, which is far beyond anything I saw, which are great. There's this tube that's called Therabrand, and people seem to have a good result with it, which is basically a sort of dense material, and you can get it online for about $25. And what you do is take it and twist it, and then slowly release that tension, the extension. And there are, like you said, a number of people have also, in addition to the exercise, felt this was a good tool. So
It looks
That's it.
like people put that in the chat too. There's a link to the Amazon in the chat for that.
Yeah.
Oh darn, we missed the floating trails presentation.
Oh, Margot, I looked for you and I thought, uh-oh, I hope she didn't think it was at 7. Well, the good news is it's recorded. Okay, sorry, Larry and Marianne, do you have
That's it.
anything else?
That's it. Yeah, and I would just,
What I used to do when I was working.
Margot and Jim, you guys are, you're not muted.
so I think Elizabeth's put something into the chat. There are different strengths and there's different positions, and like anything else, right? You can make it simple or you can make it more complicated. So you can twist it in one direction and twist it in the other direction. You can twist it and bend it. So there's all manner of ways that you can use the tool. And I'm sorry, I can't help but be political. If there's any way you could get it without Amazon, do it.
Yeah, you can get it at orthopedic supply places.
Yes.
And they do, what I've heard and what I've seen is the green is really one that's recommended. It's got a nice density.
And I think Krista just added something else. And I think Krista was one of the people, Larry, that you spoke with.
Yep.
Yeah, ice massage, absolutely. Okay, so what's ice massage? Basically, you can use an ice cube, or make an ice cube in a little paper cup if you like, and put the ice directly on the area that is sore. So the ice helps to reduce the inflammation. And if you use ice until it numbs, okay, just until it numbs. So ice massage right on the spot until it numbs, and then you're done, because you don't want to give yourself frostbite.
And you can use leftover ice for margaritas and make other parts numb.
Why not? So, oh, Margot, it is recorded, so you'll get to see it from top to bottom.
And your session is recorded too, Marianne, so we can come back to it.
Oh no.
When you no, because people may not have tennis elbow now, but they might have it next summer, and they're going to know where to go.
So again, the most important thing to do, it's just like hypothermia, right? The way to avoid it is to prevent it. So have enough clothes and you won't get hypothermia. Get those arms strong, move through a full range of motion, and you won't have it in the first place. Thank you.
Great job. Thank you so much. Somebody commented, careful to avoid the over-waggling injury. Hard to imagine you can over-waggle, but I suppose you could.
Well, in fact, if you're like this, where you're throwing the hands around, that can be uncomfortable for the wrist. That's why I said, if you want to do the waggle, let the fingers come up, so you're not compressing the wrist, you're just spinning it back and forth, but the wrist is still, just as when we were paddling, the wrist is still in neutral.
Great. Thank you so much. Another awesome session.
I have a comment.
Please.
When I was first kayaking, I got tennis elbow, and my doctor prescribed it as kayaker's elbow. And the way that I got it to go away is increased torso rotation. And Marianne probably could say something about that.
Because if you're not gripping the paddle, you're rotating your torso. You don't have to be tense in the hands. Exactly.
Franca mentioned a really great point too, is to practice open palm paddling. Because I know I used to get like death grips, and that would really shoot pain up my arm. So you do your stroke, you can do open palm, practice that. Probably not when it's windy, but
right.
Practice open palm paddling. So you're open palm on the out.
Right. What tends to happen if we do death grip is really more discomfort on the softer side of the forearm, because it's the fingers that are flexing and gripping. So the wind tends to impact the lateral epicondyle, and the death grip tends to impact what's called the medial epicondyle, the soft side of the forearm. And Penny's exactly right. You can relax your hands if you're doing the torso rotation.
Good job. Okay, any last questions for Marianne, Larry, or any other folks on this? Lots of good comments in the chat. So, like you said, prevention, the ounce of prevention is what we need. Okay, that's all we have for this meeting, unless anybody has any last comments they want to add or make. questions?
Thank you for another great meeting, Chris.
Well, thanks everybody for coming, and go dive into floating trail. Plan your next paddle. Should be good. Okay, thanks everybody. Good night.
Good
See
night.
you on the water.